This is a throwaway account for privacy reasons. The names have been changed for obvious reasons, but the story remains the same. I don't know where to begin. My life feels like a complete mess right now, and I feel like every step I take to move forward brings me 2 steps back. Saying that I feel disappointed and stuck with myself and my life would be an understatement. My situation was so bad mentally and emotionally that all I was able to do every day was wake up, have coffee, refill my cat's food tray, and then lie in bed or on the couch for most part of the day. Except when my husband was home. I can't be myself when he is around. I am in a fight or flight state at that time. I will give you guys a bit of a backstory here so that you can understand the gravity of my situation. I started dating my boyfriend, Michael, when we were about to finish elementary school and were promoted to high school. We lived in the same locality and had the same set of friends. We didn't interact much until he asked me out for prom one year, and we hit it off really well from there. We texted each other a lot. We were the same age and had the same issues and subjects, and our families were happy that we had finally found someone to be with. Except my dad. He was an alcoholic, and he passed away a year before I got engaged to my boyfriend of 10 years. He hated Michael. He was against our relationship because he didn't approve of his family, and he believed his dad was involved in a lot of illegal shit and warned me to stay away from him for almost a decade. He even got me engaged forcefully to a guy I barely knew. I agreed because at that point, Michael and I were having issues in our relationship, and he was insecure about my guy best friends, and that made me very mad. So the guy who I was then engaged to, his name was Liam, and he ended up being very aggressive, and I cried myself to sleep on most nights. He was a perfect 10 when I met him, and I thought he would keep me happy. I realized later that he couldn't digest the fact that I had a boyfriend for so long and he was not my first. He used to keep asking me stuff about Michael and to what extent we were physically involved and if I ever got pregnant with him. There was no limit to the amount of overthinking he could do, and this made him act out negatively towards me because he couldn't handle the frustration of his fiancé's first love being someone else. I mean, what was my fault in it? I wasn't cheating on him or something. I had cut all ties with him when I got engaged, and I never gave him a reason to doubt me. Yet, Lionel would speak ill of my family and dish out caustic remarks on my character and appearance and almost everything I did. When my younger brother saw that I was deeply sad and cried so much, he told my dad, who then broke off the engagement immediately. He then gave my hand in my boyfriend's hand, and we were on cloud 9. It was a rough patch for us for sure, but we emerged stronger and more mature as a couple, and he was heartbroken when I was engaged, and he straightened up his life meanwhile. He started doing a part-time job so he could save for college and future. His family was well off, but his ego was bigger than that. He wanted to make something of himself, and he used our time apart to focus on his life. We missed each other terribly, but never contacted each other. He didn't want to ruin my engaged life, and I didn't want to tarnish my own image by being in touch with my ex either. Things had changed when we got back together, but they were still kind of the same. In fact, we loved each other more deeply and more actively now. He made it clear that my life and my friends were none of his business as long as I was loyal to him. We got engaged in a private ceremony and even planned to get married soon. Amidst all this fairy tale love story and reconciliation, my father succumbed to his alcohol overdose and passed away one night in the hospital. Soon after, my grandmother died peacefully in her sleep. I was in a very dark phase and couldn't focus on my life for the longest time. Lion was after my life, commenting fake things about us on Michael's social media photos of us, that while we were engaged I slept with him and he has seen me naked and that he has private photos of me that you would leak. I was terrified beyond anything that he could stoop so low. I hadn't slept with him. We had just made out a couple of times because he initiated it, and I just went along with the flow. We called the cops on him, and thankfully he stopped harassing us after that. I thought that was the end of my problems. But then something unimaginable happened. I was still mourning the loss of my dad and grandma when life gave me the biggest blow ever. My fiancé died. Yes, Michael was no more. He was out camping with his friends in a remote area, and there was a lake over there too, and they all decided to take a dip in the chilling water. The water was mostly still, but it seems the base was rocky, and they found his body 12 hours after he drowned mysteriously. They all had jumped in together, and when they got out, they couldn't spot Michael around them. They tried locating him, but since it was getting dark, they left and came back. A search team was sent to the scene immediately after. I went with them too. I couldn't believe that he could have drowned just like that. No noise and no sign of him when they took their heads out. His friends said it was so unexpected and eerily true that they are in a fix too as to what exactly must have happened. His body was found as daylight came in, and I just fainted. His head had several injuries. I had to face 3 deaths in a row, and all the people I loved dearly were gone just like that, snatched away from me. I was devastated for a couple of months after that. I missed him terribly, and my life was turned upside down in a second. We had so many plans for the future. Now I didn't even have a plan for tomorrow. He was an amazing human and my support system. People told me I was so young and beautiful and smart, and that I had my whole life ahead of me, but it's easier said than done. I was in a total mess, and although I wasn't suicidal, my only thought was, what's the point of living now? I couldn't understand how people lived and continued on with their lives after the loss of their loved ones. I guess I'm not a strong person, so I didn't allow myself to mourn Michelle's death properly. I tried to mask it. I took the opposite road instead of mourning. I tried to live it up, and I hung out with our mutual friends who were all very supportive and concerned about my mental state. A few weeks later, I even asked my mom to look for a suitable match for me and get me married off out of country so I could start my life afresh. This was very unrealistic, I know, but I was a very naive and irrational person then, given all my life scenarios, and I was always finding the next escape. I was resisting the mourning phase because I was still in shock, I guess, and this was a very poor attempt from me to handle the consecutive deaths I saw. Michael and I were not living together yet, but we were getting his apartment refurbished for us and our future kids. Yes, we even had our kids planned. We liked to discuss our future together a lot. Sadly, we had to stop at being engaged. A part of me died with him too. I can never stop loving him. Rest in peace, baby. So fast forward to my current situation. My mom and uncle found a suitable match for me in another country, and the guy was a very successful and established software developer. He was handsome, smart, and very friendly. We met when he was in my hometown, visiting his aunt's family, who also happens to be my mom's best friend. She was the one who suggested Paul to my mother for me. His parents were also wishing for him to get settled soon, and since he didn't have any time in his life for pursuing women or dating, he was open to meeting someone in his free time, and he told me later that when he saw my picture he stared at it for so long, his mom and dad started to tease him. I don't want to boast about myself, but my friends say that I have beautiful features and my hair is the most gorgeous kind of silky and straight and kind of brown. Michael would always be mesmerized by my hair and my doe eyes. Yes, so when Paul sees my picture, he says he fell in love. I believed this would be the safest exit ever and an escape which would help me move on from my tragic past. He was the right guy for me. We got married a year later, and I moved out of the country to be his stay-at-home wife. I used to work back at home, and I was financially independent, but after being married, he said I didn't need to work around strange men who would relish my beauty and try to make a pass at me. I was in disbelief. The guy who helped me move on was actually just shitty too. He was a dream until we got married. He took such good care of me and even came with me to therapy so that I would not have to face my trauma alone. Life was unfair to me, but this time I took the sensible road out. After living together, I realized that his parents were shitty too. They were rich and well-educated, sure, but they were not good people. There was something shady about them which I couldn't understand before I actually lived with them. I agreed to not work, and that was the biggest mistake. They tried to dominate me for no reason. My father-in-law would doubt my character even if a male bank executive came up to get my signatures on a few papers or if I had to go out with my friends, including male friends. My husband was emotionally distant and immersed in his work for most part of the day, and we were basically living together like roommates. He provided well for me, but that was not enough. He was not the person he used to be when we were engaged. Back then, he would come down to be with me almost every month because in his words he couldn't bear the distance. Now, his mom would make me work at home all day and make a face if I said I wanted to go out with someone apart from my husband, who hardly had any time for me. I was stuck, but I wasn't going to accept it as my fate and live in that hellhole. Everyone there was basically a roommate, and they hardly ever communicated to each other nicely. I didn't care about the family dynamics as much, but it was pointless for me to stay in that marriage because my own husband was not interested in me anymore, and I don't know to this day why they put up a grand show about wanting a wife for their son. He is not cheating on me or anything, but we were sleeping together once in a couple of months, and all communication was over text or phone because I was almost always asleep when he got back from work, as my mother-in-law wanted me up by 7 a.m. in the kitchen with her cooking elaborate meals for the family. A lot has happened in the past weeks, and I could not post much, but I think you all deserve an appropriate update about my current situation too. So for all those who are interested, I filed for divorce last month, and my husband is more than happy to let me go. I came to this country on a student visa as I visited him a couple of times before we got married, and this was the best way to do it back then. I am going to apply to a couple of programs here and pursue my master's and then work here itself. Yes, I won't be going back to my home country. I will make something of myself here. I'm going to keep my savings intact for emergencies, and I have also rented a small apartment nearby the university area. A few years ago, I wasn't like this. I would cry and sulk over how unfortunate God made my life to be. But today, I know that anything can happen anytime, and I can't keep getting stuck in an emotional rut every time an inconvenience comes my way. I'm glad my marriage ended. My ex-husband was willing to give me a huge chunk of his wealth in return for sexual favors outside our marriage. I was not going to sell my body to him, so I refused every single penny from him. He was sick. He didn't want to sleep with me while I was his wife, but he was suddenly turned on by me and crazy about me as before. I don't know how to explain it. I don't think he would ever try to harm me, but if he does, then I can surely get a restraining order on him, and I don't think he has the time to sort out legal issues, so he wouldn't mess with me. For now, romance, men, and everything related to them is on the back burner for me. I will date for sure, but never get married ever again. Marriage and family is not for me. I am better off single, and I think I would be open to meeting new people, but then they would come with their own set of expectations from me and want to get engaged and married or even die out of the blue, so all I truly have is just me. I'm going to focus on myself for now, and once I feel I am financially secure, I will think about other things. I have good friends at college who are sweet and loving, but I keep them at a distance. Nothing personal comes out of me. My family back home asked me to come back and live with them, but I don't think I have the energy to face that city and its people right now. My mom lives with my brother and his wife, and they all wish the best for me. I am supposed to video call them every day, and they keep sending me goodies every month. They're proud of me, and just want me to be happy, but that's too much they're asking for. I can promise to be well settled, safe, and successful. I don't know about happiness. I guess it was not made for me.